So, welcome to the new Doctoral Student Consortium, or NDSC podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Dr. Lindsey Cameron, Assistant Professor of Management, and the Dorinda and Mark Winkleman Distinguished Faculty Scholar at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, with a secondary appointment in sociology. Lindsey studies the future of work, especially how algorithmic management, digital platforms, and AI are reshaping workers' experiences, autonomy, and dignity. Her research includes deep fieldwork in the gig economy, including studying ride-hailing from inside the driver's seat as a driver herself. Today, we'll talk about what it means to study work when the boss may be an algorithm, how doctoral students can approach timely research contexts, and advice for making the most of AOM this year. Lindsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me too, Kayla. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and kick it kicked off here. So the first question I have for you. So for doctoral students who may be new to kind of the field that you do, what was the big question or observation that first pulled you into studying gig work and algorithmic management? How were you able to curate that very unique niche research identity that you have?
You can only tell a clear story in hindsight. At the time, I had three different dissertation ideas. One was a circus I wanted to study. The other were ex-offenders and how they find jobs coming out of prison. And then the third one was
Wow.
downward social mobility. I was really interested in because my mother had lost her job during the Great Recession, and I saw her
Hmm.
really fight to stay middle class. And as I was
Wow.
doing sort of like my explorations on all these areas, I was like downward social mobility. I think this is it. And then
Okay.
my advisor very smartly said, well, if you don't want to end up in a sociology department as your primary focus,
Hmm.
probably have an organization somewhere in there. And when I looked at my data, I saw most people were driving for Uber as a way to stop downward social mobility. And I was off to the races.
Wow, very good. And it sounds like from what I've gathered and what you've shared here a little bit today, you've been able to really integrate that interdisciplinary lens very well, contributing across kind of those domains. And so, how are you able to do that so successfully? You talked about making that transition over into the more management space. Do you have any advice there?
I don't know if I want to say advice. I didn't know how important it was for me to be an interdisciplinary scholar until I started being deep in this context and just saw
Mm,
how it speaks to so many things. I mean, it speaks to laws and about who's an independent contractor, who's an employee. It speaks to org theory about the boundaries of an organization. It thinks to the
mm,
actual worker about precarity. It fuels conversations around communications and new media. And so when I saw
mm.
how this phenomenon can be looked at from all these different lenses, at heart, I want to be a social scientist. And so I just want to figure out, well, how can I sort of get like a good A-level publication in as many disciplines as possible? Because
Wow.
it's one of the ways to really understand your context.
Certainly. It sounds like you've been over, traveled to many countries, speak different languages, contributed in many different areas, which is very unique and hard to find at such a consistently high level. So that's really interesting how you've been able to combine both your interests, personal background, seeing your mother go through that through the Great Recession, as you mentioned, and then putting that all together to address really a practical problem, both from an academic standpoint and in the real world. So it's really cool how that's all come together as an example. So, of course, something that heard you talk about a lot on other interviews, and I'd love to touch on today, is your experience as a ride-hailing driver. Now, that's clearly in the field, hands-on work experience, kind of doing that observation, qualitative study that your expertise is in. So, of course, that stands out in your research background. So, getting close to the work itself, what did that closeness to the field help you see that you might have missed from the outside? What value does that really have being inside the lines like that and hands-on?
I very much, Beth Betschke was on my committee, along with Jane Dudden, and
Mm,
my two qualitative expertise. And particularly Beth comes from like the Steve Barley, Stanford, WTO, MIT, John Van Manen,
mm,
get yourself dirty, like get the pants of your seat dirty by being in the
yeah.
field. So that was sort of going to happen no matter what context I chose on. To the point of when I had started doing this research, there was this flurry of research around the sharing economy that came out in the early 2010s, that was about this
Hmm.
was going to
Yeah.
democratize access to knowledge and tools. You no longer needed to get a lawnmower. You could just get one in this shared facility. And from this sharing economy research and the promise, there are ways of where this started to sort of show cracks by 2016, 2018. And then you have from there the rise of this critical work on the gig economy. And that, it came from
Hmm.
disciplines. And I think what I learned from being a driver is I was able to speak broader is
Mm.
not really the correct word because I didn't like my experience as being an Uber driver. But I interviewed a lot of people who really liked driving. And so I
Huh.
I wanted to take their experiences very seriously. So you see that
Very good.
my research in sort of looking at these both sides. And so I think
Hmm.
my own experience as the driver led me to really question what had led me to question and interrogate the interviews in a different way. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I took away from working in the field.
Hmm. So that unique perspective of that person in that experience to then connect back to theory to see where are those theoretical gaps that we're maybe not capturing from that actual experience of the person in that role, which is
Hmm.
very valuable. It's hard to get that through data and inference and theoretical piece when you, that's why qualitative research is so complementary. They really complement each other to kind of get that big picture of what we need. So we appreciate people like you who take several years, over 8, 9 years now, isn't it? If that's correct,
Yeah.
of this ethnography that you're doing.
Mhm.
It's really helps the quantitative people such as me, hopefully one day, to complete the story.
Great.
Okay. Great. So shifting gears here, kind of looking at the future of work and algorithmic management and AI. So a lot of doctoral students, of course, are interested in AI and platforms in the future of work right now, as they're either entering a doctoral program or in the doctoral program or even junior faculty. So,
Hmm.
what advice would you give students for asking meaningful research questions in this space without getting swept up in trends or hype, things like that? Like, where do they direct their attention effectively as this is, exploding in interest?
If I knew the answer right now, I'd be in the field. I think,
Yeah.
looking at the gig economy definitely was under the spotlight, not to the same way that AI is right now. And one thing I actually found helpful is I didn't read anything in the news about the gig economy during the main time
Hmm.
I was in the field because I didn't want it to unduly shape how I approach the phenomenon. And I really wanted to
Hmm.
experience the phenomenon from itself, like within itself. I think that's kind of impossible. I don't know if that's really possible enough to do right now with AI, but if there is something in the future of work people were going to study, like the 4-day work week, I think there's a way where we can spend too much time in the data and what that not in the data, in the literature and what the literature says, where really you just need to be with the data and what does the data say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. I appreciate that. So then, will you be at AOM this year?
Of course, in my hometown,
Wonderful.
Philadelphia.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why we wanted to reach out today to not only see how people can reach you, and perhaps if you're presenting or doing PDW or roundtables, we'd love to be able to find you at the conference. Do you have your schedule laid out of things that you're presenting and
Oh
whatnot this
gosh,
year?
I have a full slate, three PDW
I'm sure.
and three
Yes.
papers, so you can find me anywhere.
Okay. Very good. And last question here. What are some great things to do in Philadelphia? Where should we kind of go to eat or sightseeing, or what's a good thing that we should know about Philly?
Oh goodness, AOM. Well, one, I would say my advice for AOM is because it's so overwhelming and there's so many people when you show up at a party or reception. My advice to succeed at AOM, I'd say, is pick to have one good conversation with someone at each event. Like go deep as opposed to go broad, because nobody will remember you if you go broad. In terms
Hmm.
of Philadelphia, this is a foodie city. There is so much good
Is
food.
that right?
You just throw a stone, you're going to have a good meal. And there are so because we have so many MBA students here. There's so many fun things to do in the city. You know, Midnight in the Wicked is one of my favorite, like after hour secret,
Okay.
like underground spots. There's laser tag in the middle of the city. There's like there are giant arcades and game rooms. So plan a fun night out with your friends.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lindsey Cameron, for your time and your flexibility today. It's been wonderful to hear a bit about the work that you're doing and the lens that you can provide for some advice for incoming doctoral students, current doctoral, and junior faculty. So I appreciate your time today and, coming on the call with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope to see you there at AOM this year.